Hello friends and welcome to today's video. I'm going to make this intro super quick. Today I am redrawing some doodles from my childhood. So here I have a folder full of a ton of old artwork from both my really young years, so like in elementary school, and also some artwork from high school. I don't think I have any from middle school in here. I've decided I want to pick out 3 different pieces that I can recreate and feel like I could make better than when I originally made them. I also want to be excited about making them so that I can really give it my best effort. I feel like if I'm trying to recreate something that I'm not really interested in, I'm not going to be able to do much with it, so I didn't choose any of these like realistic images because I just think that's not very fun to do. Also, I'm kind of outing myself by showing you my old art because you can see just how big of a fan I was at one point of Lion King and the Lion King sequel, as well as like fan theories that were once going around and probably still are going around on the internet. So here is my little collection of Lion King art that I used to think was really awesome and well done, and now looking back is genuinely not that great for even a 5th grader to make. So now I have the 3 pieces laid out so I can kind of take a look at them and decide which one I want to do first. I've decided I want to start with Pikachu for both being simple to get into this and because I think it'll be really fun. So now here's my transition video of me sitting down at the table to actually begin sketching, which you'll notice I'm actually using a paper and a pencil for this as opposed to just using my iPad. Now I did try jumping right away to the final piece of paper and just drawing right what I wanted to do, but I really struggled with that, so I kind of had to back up and do this sketching process first. So I sketched Pikachu in a few different positions really, so I could just get a feel for his overall character design and his proportions, and then these are what I drew for that, so you can kind of check those out. Now after sketching those practice drawings, I'm going through now and I'm drawing what I want to be like a final sketch for my actual art piece. And of course, I'm not showing you what I'm actually sketching at this point because I wanted it to kind of stay a surprise until later in the video, although I basically show it right after this anyway, so let's jump right to that. Now, one thing I have learned about myself ever since starting this little process is that I have grown really rusty at drawing with just a regular paper and pencil, so I am really glad that I did go back and do those sketches before I went to the final piece. As you can see, I do have that final sketch above this piece of paper, so I can completely reference it and try to do just a one-to-one recreation onto the final drawing. I've also made the personal note that I should just start sketching more in that sketchbook. And even having that sketch to reference and try to recreate one-to-one, I still have issues getting this down on the page, but in the end I end up pretty happy. It is a little bit different from the original, and I kind of exaggerated the tail a bit more, but overall I think he's pretty good looking in the second version. So now you can see that this is the final sketch. I've darkened the lines so you can see it a little bit better on camera, but I'm going to go through with a black marker and make my sketch into more of like an outline that I can follow for when I go to the coloring stage. One thing I really like about how I drew this piece is that I elongated his tail and have it kind of accentuating him, and it really is just making him the focal point of the piece, and I think overall it works really well and it kind of adds a little bit more interest to the piece. But anyways, here is what the final line art looks like when I'm done. And here is the original sketch versus the final. So because I am pretty happy with that line art I have, I do not want to mess it up at all. So because I'm using new alcohol markers that I don't really know that well, I want to make sure I go through and test the colors I want to use and have them on paper before I actually put them onto the final drawing. The only thing that could possibly really go wrong by doing this is that I'm using a different paper because my sketchbook is just kind of regular paper. It's not like printer paper, so it's a little bit thicker, but it's not as smooth as the paper you usually use for alcohol markers because that is like called blending stock, I believe, and it's meant to be very smooth to help with the transitions and the blends and whatnot. But I still think that this will give me a pretty good idea of what the colors will actually look like, especially after they have dried, because I always dry a little bit different. Another benefit of doing this though is that I can also test out where I want to put any shadows, the overall color scheme, and honestly just which markers I want to use for my highlights and my shadows and whatnot, and I think that's really nice. And I also got to test out how I wanted to draw the lightning bolts and which colors I wanted to use. It also kind of just puts like a cool sketch into my sketchbook, which is always nice because my sketchbook is very empty as of now, so filling it up is always a good thing in my opinion. But this is what the completed sketch looks like with the colors included. Now it is finally time to start putting the color down on that final line art drawing. At this point I went in with a pencil and I kind of put in the lightning bolts that I wanted to have so I didn't over color them with another marker. And then I also put in the shading spots of where I wanted the shading to be really light and kind of like reflect any light that would be coming off of the lightning bolts to just kind of give it a cool flare. And this is what I mean. I went in with a fluorescent yellow, which is very similar to like a highlighter yellow, and that's going to be really cool because later on, which I will show you, I put this up on the wall in my office, and I have kind of like Christmas lights up that are purple, and the purple gives this kind of like a blue light effect that makes that fluorescent yellow really, really pop. And genuinely, when you walk by the office, this Pokemon looks like he's actually glowing. Now, this is the part of the process where I kind of start running into my first actually kind of annoying issue with the process, and that is when I put down the pencil to tell me where the shading would be. I did not think about the fact that when I put marker on top of that pencil, it was gonna kind of seal it in. So I've tried to erase it since then, but I just can't get it to come off. I did buy some new erasers, but I haven't had them come in yet. And I'm hoping that when I use those new erasers, I can actually erase the pencil. Because right now it kind of looks like Pikachu had like an acid spill on his stomach, and that's like the worst spot, in my opinion at least. But for the most part, I'm okay with it, and you can't really notice it from too far away, but I'm hoping that that eraser does fix that issue for me in the future. I don't know if I've mentioned this yet, but I'm going for a kind of graphic, like comic book style with this drawing. So I decided to encase Pikachu in this orange, like rectangle background, and then give him a white border around him to make him really pop. And I think that this is really cool because I can put all sorts of little details into this that kind of gives it the comic book vibes. In addition to the white border around Pikachu, I also made sure to leave kind of a border around the lightning bolts coming out of him because I wanted them to also really pop and have quite a bit of attention on them. Now, while I am still pretty new to alcohol markers, I am once again just shocked at how well they work, and genuinely I just think that so far, while I've been using them, they are such a fun medium to work with. The only issue I had with them throughout this whole process was I kind of noticed that the orange got really, really dark the more layers I put down, but I had to keep putting down layers to make the background smooth. So that was my only issue, and I think in the end I did struggle to make it completely smooth. But then again, I bought really, really cheap alcohol markers, so I can't really complain about that because that probably is just a result of the markers that I chose personally. And even then, I'm still pretty happy with the results, and I could always go over with a colored pencil if I wanted to smooth it out in the future. Now, I did that white border around the lightning bolts like I talked about before, but I thought that they weren't really sticking out enough, so I decided to go through and put some green in the lightning bolts to also bring a little bit more attention to them, and then it also gave me another color that I could add to the light spots on Pikachu to add that glow effect. So now this drawing is almost done. All I have to do is go in those lightning bolts with a little bit more color and do a little bit of finishing touches. And at this point, I am super duper happy with how it's looking. After the marker dried, I think the orange really pops and looks really cool. I think the shading is all pretty well done. And I just think he's a really cool drawing in general, and definitely a step up from that Pikachu I drew all those years ago. Now finally, here is the finished Pikachu put up on my wall. And as promised, here is a picture of him kind of glowing next to the lighting I have in our office. Now that just about wraps up today's video. I do have two more pieces that I want to recreate, but I took too long on Pikachu. So there's at least going to be a part 2, if not a part 3 to this video. Now, if you made it this far, please consider subscribing, and thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next week.